From the Stone Age to the Space Age, humans have prized asbestos for its incredible resistance to fire and other elements. Welcome to Asbestos Rewind.
Hi, I'm asbestos attorney Justinian Lane, and thanks for joining us for today's episode of Asbestos Rewind, a segment where we take a look back in the past to see how humans have used asbestos throughout history. Today we're going to go back to February of 1943 and take a look at a column called They Say that was published in Asbestos Magazine, which was a trade magazine for the asbestos industry. There's a couple of stories in here that are kind of interesting that we'll talk about. Remember, this is World War II. A new and improved type of flamethrower used by chemical warfare and engineer troops for reduction of fortifications can be carried and operated by one man who needs no asbestos uniform. The device is said to be of longer range than previous flamethrowers and uses a new fuel which burns persistently. Now, early flamethrower troops were equipped with asbestos suits and asbestos gear. They'd be wrapped head to toe in the white asbestos suits to protect them from catching fire. I've been fortunate enough to actually be on the firing end of a more modern flamethrower, and even just using with a modern technology flamethrower, standing in back of it, it's incredibly hot. I can imagine why these guys had to use these asbestos suits back in the day. And here they're refining the technology. This is the height of World War II, and we're still trying to figure out how do we use flamethrowers to go clear out enemy emplacements. If you watch Saving Private Ryan in the very beginning, they use a flamethrower to take out a German pillbox. Saving Private Ryan was after 1942, so they didn't have to have the asbestos suits. So that's kind of a little interesting tie-in for that. Speaking of the war effort, imagine the time, what it must have been like. We have this story. Mrs. Carmela Zarillo of Orange, New Jersey has found a war job right in her home. She patches asbestos gloves, with asbestos cloth patches, of course, for the Westinghouse Lamp Division of Bloomfield, New Jersey. As a result, the gloves that are used in the handling of hot lamp bulbs will last 10 to 20 times as long as formerly. Mrs. Zarillo is 66 years old. Can you imagine what that must have been like, that a major multinational corporation is relying on 66-year-old grandmothers to patch things in their home? And the last story from this one is about Firestone Rubber. They were the first to put into production a government-owned synthetic rubber plant. The first unit started making rubber in April of 42, and it has a capacity of 100,000 acres of rubber trees. Now, I have a lot of clients who actually worked at this plant, and while a few of them have since passed, I had a couple of clients who were there in the beginning when they built this. And this plant outside of Lake Charles, Louisiana, Firestone Rubber Plant, has been there and is still in operation, and they made all sorts of rubber products throughout the year. This was very critical for the war effort because rubber was a strategic resource that was in short supply. If you grew up watching Disney cartoons like I did, you might remember some of the, like Donald Duck having a hard time getting new tires because of war rationing. It was a really different time in our nation's history, and it was plants like this and the men and women that worked there that helped us win that war. So thank you for watching this episode of Asbestos Rewind, where we touched on some of the ways that asbestos helped us win World War II. We had a grandmother patching asbestos gloves for Westinghouse Corporation. We talked a little bit about flamethrowers finally not requiring asbestos suits, and of course the Firestone synthetic tire and rubber plant that helped us win the war by giving us those materials. We look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of Asbestos Rewind.